does Arnold follow up the greatest cinematic achievement in his storied career? By doing what any star at the height of his powers would do: direct a straight-to-cable TNT original remake of a 1945 Christmas movie starring Dyan Cannon and Kris Kristofferson. Of course he does! It's time for Christmas in Connecticut. Hello friends, and welcome to a bonus episode of Every Arnold Movie Ever. When we last hung out, Arnold was busy crafting a masterpiece with James Cameron, and we also found out he farted on someone's head once. But before he moved on to his next film project, or crop-dusted Professor Sprout, he sat back down in the director's chair for Christmas in Connecticut. Now, as I previously covered, Arnold's directing experience consists of one hilariously wonky and incredibly entertaining episode of Tales from the Crypt. But he wasn't finished behind the camera. He had one more story he needed to tell. Arnold is a massive fan of Christmas, as he detailed in his book.
Holidays become much more meaningful when you have a family, because now you see them in two ways. I remembered Christmas vividly when I was a kid. My mother and father lighting the candles on the tree with the toys underneath, singing Heilige Nacht. Now I also saw Christmas through a parent's eye.
And also see Jingle All the Way. Or don't. And apparently, he's also a fan of romantic comedies.
I love romantic comedies, so I made one myself.
So even though it comes on the heels of T2, it's actually not that crazy that Arnold chose to direct this. It's a low-stakes indulgence that won't adversely affect his career if it doesn't turn out well, and if it works, it could open more doors to him as a director. The original Christmas in Connecticut is considered a holiday classic, even though I never hear anybody talk about it in the same way they talk about something like Miracle on 34th Street or It's a Wonderful Life. Maybe it hasn't withstood the test of time. Maybe it needed an update. The original follows Elizabeth Lane, played by Barbara Stanwyck, a food writer who writes about being the perfect housewife to a husband and child in a Connecticut home. Only problem is, none of it's true. Her publisher has no idea that she's lying and asks her to host Christmas dinner for a returning war hero. Hijinks ensue, screwball antics ensue, truths are revealed, and everyone lives happily ever after. The remake hews close to that, but updates some of the details for the early 90s. Fun trivia here, the casting was done by Jackie Birch, who also cast Commando, The Running Man, Predator, Red Heat, End of Days, Alvin and the Chipmunks, Road Chip. Excellent casting director. Arnold must have called in a favor for this. We open in a log cabin in the middle of the snowy mountains where we meet Forest Ranger Jefferson Jones, played by perpetual 200-year-old Kris Kristofferson. And he is a real man. The kind of man who does arm exercises with these little chairs. The kind of man who's baffled by modern technology like a coffee maker? Really? What does this guy, just chew coffee beans instead of drinking them? He's the kind of man who cuts the neck and sleeves off his sweatshirt himself. Is that a kind of man? The kind of man who rescues children from blizzards. In the original movie, the character is a war hero, but here they went with a forest ranger instead. Come on, guys. The Gulf War was right there. Then we meet Elizabeth Blaine, played by Dyan Cannon. She's a TV cook, and she's the kind of woman who eats Thanksgiving dinner alone. And that dinner is a McDonald's hamburger. She's the kind of woman who collects Hummel figurines, if you know what I mean. And what I mean is, she collects Hummel figurines. She has a producer, played by Tony Curtis, who is an insane person.
Oh, this is showtime! Get him out! Out! Out!
And you don't even know the half of it yet. Wait till we get to that part. No one freaks out this much about a cooking show. I am telling you, that's ridiculous. Other than that, it's a fairly normal TV set. You got the director, cameraman, topless crew member. Wait, I'm sorry. Why is that guy topless? And where is he climbing? He's not even adjusting a light or anything. He just does some half-nude climbing. Meanwhile, Jefferson makes his daring rescue of the child in a sequence that rivals any modern Marvel action set piece, in that after 3 seconds it becomes incredibly boring. Ooh, Marvel shade. He rolls around in some fake snow that's clearly just someone's backyard, and between the music and the wind sound effects, you can barely make out any of the dialogue. He saves the kid, but at the same time, off-screen,
in a tragic twist of fate, Jefferson Jones' cabin, his home, burned to the ground while he was risking his life to save the child.
Clearly, they blew the budget on that rescue sequence. Oh, yeah. But Arnold misses an opportunity as director to establish something. anything that would explain this fire. When Jefferson runs out of the cabin to save the kid, all you needed to see was like a tea kettle on the stove or something. One of the only things they find in the cabin is Elizabeth's cookbook, which Jefferson's sister left there.
Would you please look for that Elizabeth Blaine cookbook that I gave you for your birthday?
Tony Curtis then devises a plan to bring Jefferson and Elizabeth together for a primetime special for ratings. And let's just pause here for a moment. This is a made-for-TV Christmas movie, not Chinatown. It doesn't need complicated plotting to get us to the premise of the movie. And yet, Elizabeth isn't interested in doing the special, but Tony Curtis bribes her by saying if the ratings are good, she'll be able to buy more Hummel figurines. Could you take a longer route to get to the point? Make a cooking show that gets good ratings, that eventually translates into a higher salary so she can go out and buy more ceramic dolls. Also, come on, a grown adult buying figurines? What a loser. At the same time, Jefferson says the network offered him $25,000 to do this show.
Gets me the money to put this back up, I can put up with their stuff for a couple of days.
Apparently, he's too much of a man to get cabin insurance, and $25,000 to guest star on a cooking show? I've worked on cooking shows. We paid our guests in food. Anyway, they both agree to do it. She's in it for the money. He's in it for the money. Tony Curtis is in it for, well, just you wait. And we're in it for, well, it's supposed to be for entertainment, but that's hard to do when everyone else is motivated by superficial reasons. Speaking of superficial, Elizabeth isn't even a cook.
You and I both know I can't cook.
Don't say that.
I can't cook, Alex. I can't cook.
She's been faking it her entire career. So, if you weren't connecting with her monetary motivations, maybe you'll relate to her as a total fraud?
What were you before I rescued you from that dead-end magazine, huh?
Happy.
A know-nothing
I
writer.
was happy.
Poor baby, and now you're famous.
That's right. And in debt.
And then, on top of everything else, in order to keep up the facade, Tony Curtis gives Elizabeth a fake family for the special. Because, I don't know, people get sad watching a single woman cook. You know, at first I thought they did this because that's how they did it in the original. But then things get a little weird.
And I shall play your loving, debonair husband, what's his name?
Why? Well, this is where things take a turn. Her fake son is played by Pugsley from the Addams Family movies, clearly trying to fill some sort of Macaulay Culkin Home Alone quotient. They bring in a random baby who belongs to... not actually sure. There's also a struggling actor who plays Elizabeth's son and goes method to prepare for a role, and that leads us to this confounding moment.
I'll tell you later.
Hey!
Where are you going?
I'll be back.
I love that guy.
I've listened to that clip way too many times. I am 100% sure that's Arnold's voice.
I'll be back.
This movie was seen by no one and remembered by even less people, so it's fine, but this is absolutely the most egregious bastardization of I'll Be Back in Arnold's career. Most of the sequences are supposed to have this zany madcap screwball tone, kind of like the original, but they just come across as loud and abrasive and completely contrived.
What's the matter?
Put her down!
What are you doing?
And none of this is based in reality or earned through story or character. It's just noise. Then Jefferson Jones arrives, and this is where it becomes clear that this is an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie.
The Brazilians think that the sacral part of the woman is the ass.
I knew I had something in common with the Brazilian man.
I can absolutely understand why Brazil is totally devoted to my favorite body part, the ass.
Did he just lick his lips? Oh, yeah. And we get our first taste of the hijinks ahead when Elizabeth is almost caught not cooking.
When should I start dinner?
Are you the cook?
But that's my occupation. Since I'm on vacation, Mary's going to take over in the kitchen until Christmas.
Close one, I guess. Now Jefferson does some of that sleeveless wood chopping, and it's Elizabeth's turn to creep on him. I mean, look at this sweatshirt. The man went crazy with the scissors. Sure you left enough room for your armpits to breathe, Jeff? You don't want to cut it, leave it a little bit further down? Then Tony Curtis is back, and he goes on a walk with Jefferson to tell him,
You know what drives her crazy? When I suck her toes, she goes crazy like a horse.
Now, we, the audience, know that that's not true. So he's just telling Jefferson about what he wants to do to Elizabeth, which makes it worse.
I want to take her in my arms and give her a kiss.
And suddenly, at this moment, Christmas in Connecticut morphs from a Christmas movie to a sinister psychodrama. After dinner, Jefferson and Elizabeth are having a normal conversation, and Tony Curtis cannot stand it. So he uses his leverage as a fake husband to try and get Elizabeth to go to bed with him.
Time to go to bed.
Together?
But you know I can't sleep without you. We're like two spoons.
We have company.
Please, Jonesy's a grown man. I don't want to go to bed
Well,
alone.
dear, I want you to.
Can you come up here?
Yes, of course I will.
No, she can't. Mom and Dad are going to bed.
And during this scene, all the pieces fall into place. The only reason Tony Curtis came up with the idea of Jefferson Jones doing Elizabeth's show is to suggest Elizabeth get a fake family so he can appoint himself as her husband with the sole purpose of sleeping with her.
What choice do you have?
It's horrifying. And Elizabeth does everything she can to escape this creep, going up to Pugsley's room while he's watching Twins on the TV. Tony Curtis stalks her to the room, but he ends up giving up. And at this point, I was really nervous. I thought the rest of the movie would be about Tony's attempt to trap and seduce Elizabeth. But, to my relief, it's only briefly mentioned one more time. In fact, Tony Curtis moves on to a totally different subplot altogether, thinking the method actor is actually a serial killer. That one also doesn't go anywhere either. Kris Kristofferson then does this entire scene with an uncomfortable amount of toothpaste all over his face. And I want to go back for a second because in that earlier scene, we found out that Jefferson used to be a professor, but he gave up the grind because he wasn't happy and went to go live in the woods. Okay, fine, that's a nice character layer. But you're telling me this well-educated former professor doesn't know how to use a coffee machine? From there, the romance blossoms, even though Jefferson knows Elizabeth is married.
This is crazy.
Man, all these people are terrible. And what are they feeding this baby? You're supposed to just give him milk. We get the worst snowball fight put on film, the worst tree decorating put on film, then Jefferson essentially gropes Elizabeth right in front of her husband. Oh, yeah. Then they go out to a good old-fashioned Connecticut hootenanny with dollar store Terry Bradshaw on violin and flirt some more, steal a horse and buggy, and Jefferson willingly kisses Elizabeth again, knowing she's married. It's only after that kiss that she reveals the truth.
Elizabeth Blaine, the homemaker that all America loves, wasn't even married.
Jefferson doesn't really believe her, and he's all,
Well, you are married, and that's the point. And I don't think you ought to be fooling around with somebody's feelings like this.
hang on, you kissed her, dude. If anyone's messing with anybody, it's you. Then we finally get a surprise cameo from the director himself as part of the satellite crew. His dialogue is literally background noise.
Let
me have a look at it.
But I transcribed it for you.
Cross-check this with the comlink.
I'm going to go on with the show no matter what. If she's here or not, I'm going to just put someone in here.
Well, look at this.
No, absolutely not. You find him, okay? You find her, you find him.
Let me have a look at it. Let me see.
Don't give me
Yeah.
Impactful stuff. As far as cameos go, this is almost the worst. I say almost because I didn't expect him to be in this. And there's another movie where he has a cameo that I considered doing a bonus episode for, but even I have my limits. It's a direct-to-video movie from 1994 called Beretta's Island. And it stars Arnold's old friend, Franco Columbo, in an attempt to be an action star. Arnold's cameo is literally just a 3-minute sequence of he and Franco working out. That's it.
Oh, no. Yes. It feels good again to train with you. Think about all your girlfriends. Think about the beach. No. Think about surfing. Think about the money.
Now, the reason I consider that worse is because I saw the cover of this movie, and Arnold takes up 25% of the poster. Nice, intimidating polo, Franco. My expectations were pretty high after seeing that, and I was hoping I unearthed a hidden gem performance. But it's just Arnold lifting weights and ranting about stinky wine.
Did you still press your wine with your feet? And I think that every time I drink your wine, I smell your sweaty feet in the wine. And that really upsets me.
Back to the movie at hand, Richard Roundtree, Shaft himself, shows up as the head of the network, and he does very, very little. He's upset because Elizabeth and Jefferson are irresponsibly shirking their duties while the special is about to start. They're out smooching in the woods somewhere. They come back just in time, but her assistant who does all the cooking, she's missing because she went to go find them, and she lightly crashed her van. Tony Curtis, turns out, is not exactly a red light performer.
What's for the din? The din?
Confirming my theory that his entire motivation was to trick Elizabeth into sleeping with him. The special is a complete disaster, but we get a hell of an advertisement for Mrs. Buttersworth. Eventually, Elizabeth reveals the truth to her audience, kisses Jefferson. Now he understands that she's single, so I guess it's fine. They move back to New York, and that's pretty much it. Christmas in Connecticut had its cable debut on... wait, is that right?
A TNT exclusive premiere, Monday, April 13th.
A Christmas movie in April. They couldn't even wait 3 months to do the gimmicky Christmas in July release, which means either TNT execs saw the movie and said, oh shit, this is too good to keep on the shelf. We must release this to the masses now. I don't care what month it is. Or they said, good sweet lord, put this shit out now when no one will watch it. Christmas in Connecticut did not have any action figures, though they missed an opportunity to do a Hummel crossover, but it did have that integration deal with Mrs. Buttersworth. It's featured prominently in the thrilling climax of the movie, and
when you rent
Christmas in Connecticut
and buy Mrs. Butterworth's, receive a $1 rebate. Look for details on the video or in grocery stores.
Ooh, a rebate. Reviews for this movie were lost to time, I'm afraid. I could only find one legitimate review from an actual critic, Walter Chaw, back in 2004, who wrote, the sort of unqualified failure that finds something like 30 dozen ways to redefine fatuous. But what do critics know? Let's check out what they're saying on IMDb and Amazon. 7 out of 10. I loved it! Chembio Chick 20 from December 2002. I know. It probably sucked. And I really don't like Dyan Cannon. Talk about a chick who's afraid to age. But I loved this movie. Try it with an eye towards entertainment. I'm sure you'll like it. 10 out of 10, one of my favorite movies, Adana Shea 6, December 2021. Oh, recently. To me, this movie will always be a 10. I literally watch it at least 10 times a year. Lol, my second favorite is Christmas Comes to Willow Creek if you haven't seen it. Morgan on Letterboxd gave it 2 stars and said, happy birthday, Barbara Stanwyck. I watched the wrong version of your movie so that I could make a little joke on letterboxd.com. Anyway, this was fucking unhinged. The people love it. I do not. I've talked about my love of Christmas movies before. I'm pretty forgiving when it comes to them, but I'm also not a Hallmark holiday guy, and this falls squarely in that category. The script needed 2 to 16 more drafts, and half a dozen storylines are introduced and dropped with no payoff. Every scene devolves into loud noises, and the legwork required to throw obstacles at Elizabeth and Jefferson renders the storyline borderline incomprehensible. It's supposed to be a romantic comedy, but the comedy is anti-comedy, and the romance rests on the premise that one person thinks the other is married and still pursues the relationship. Dyan Cannon has more chemistry with her Hummel figurines than she does with Kris Kristofferson. Everyone is motivated by money, and there is a bizarre amount of leering and ogling, which may be Arnold's most visible fingerprints on this film. This was a curiosity for me for many years. I knew it existed. I always saw it on IMDb, and I wanted to see it, but I just never made the effort to seek it out. Some things are better left a mystery. This was the only movie Arnold ever directed, and I can understand why. It seems like a lark, something he was never serious about, but the opportunity came up and he gave it a shot. It doesn't feel like he put in the same effort as he did to become a bodybuilding champion or the biggest action star on the planet. And you know what? If he was going to keep directing work at the quality of Christmas in Connecticut, it's best that he quit while he was behind. No, not that behind.
The ass.
Besides, he wasn't done making huge blockbusters, even though his next one would turn out to be the biggest flop of his career. See you next time.